Good morning, everyone. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the sacred mystic archetype and the true power of the spiritual mystic in your life and business and your spiritual journey. So we're just going to look first of all at just as I'm going to use Caroline Mizzy's card just to demonstrate, her perspective of the mystic, and then we're going to explore a little bit how the mystic can really help you in your life and in your business, and how it can show up in maybe its shadow traits. So here is, I'm just going to put that right up for you. Here is the mystic archetype. And the reason that I'm calling this session the Sacred Mystic is that I want to highlight the element of taking the mystic archetype in in a sacred way. One of the things that sometimes you see in the spiritual community, and particularly the New Age community, is where there can be a looseness attached to mysticism that it's not always viewed in a sacred or in a divine way, right? It's maybe how could you say, maybe abused a little bit. It's not honoured, it's not respected, and it's not valued. It can be used just as a gimmick kind of thing, and we're going to explore this a little bit more. So if we take it to its basic form, in the light aspects, the mystic archetype revels in intimate union with the divine, right? Now, the light aspect of the mystic is actually they devote, they sacrifice. Actually, the true aspect of someone that is in the mystic archetype and takes it seriously, right, is they follow a selfless path of practice to achieve union with the divine or a state of enlightenment that manifests as service to others. So it's like they devote their life to that mysticism. It's not seen as just as a hobby. It's not just seen as something they dip in and out of. The true mystic, the sacred mystic, actually goes on a spiritual and a sacred journey, and they take the journey very seriously. So they devote time each day to that spiritual journey. They often devote their life to exploring the mystic journey, right? So they tend to invest a lot into that part. It's not just as something to be seen or to be seen that they can do it. So if we think about it, sometimes it's like everything in life, we can get a certificate in something or a title in something, and it sounds good and whatever, but if we're not doing the work, and we're not doing the background, there's no authenticity, there's no alignment, there's no true substance. So the sacred mystic is not just seen to be a mystic, and in the spiritual industry, and particularly when you see psychics in the medium industry, anything that's to do with our intuition and things, or mysticism, it can be easy to market something as very mystical, right? And market maybe a course or your work. But if it's lacking that sacredness, it's lacking that divinity, that discipline, it's not really, it's not in its power, right? It can fall into its shadow trait, okay? So I'm just going to explain aspects of the shadow trait just to look. So the shadow traits are delusional rapport with the divine, where maybe you think you've got a strong connection to the divine, you kid yourself on that you are disciplined in your practice, and that what's coming through is divine, but it's quite maybe not, right? And it can manifest is when you your own spiritual progress. You're not, for example, either sharing it, you're all about your own development, but you're not willing to share what you've learned, what you've explored. You're not sharing it for a higher purpose. You're not sharing it for the greater good, right? Or you're exploiting, you're using what you've learned and you're really exploiting it just for economic gain. Or it's also talking about, like, for, in a sexual way, you're using it. So if you think about cults, these people that set up cults and then they take advantage of people and manipulate, or maybe to make them look more sexually attractive or healing to the masses. If you think about that as well, where someone just evolves, but they're only doing it from the ego to be seen, but they're not actually doing it to actually do something for the greater good, right? They're not doing it for their own development in relation to having an impact, right? There's ulterior motives. There's other motives there. So it's like for someone just signing up for spiritual courses and they're only looking at to how much money they can make out of it, right? Or someone, saying that they can do and they've got, these abilities, but they're not being honest, authentic, truthful, and, maybe, how could you say, maybe just want to be seen as if they have, but there's no substance behind it. There's no integrity behind it, right? Now, the mystic archetype is a powerful archetype that can help us connect with God, the divine, and help us open, the sacred mystic within ourselves. And it's about, going on as a sacred spiritual journey, right? And if you think about the road less traveled, but the road inward, right? We all know that the external world is in some ways an illusion in some ways, and the external world is not just, it's just one aspect of our life. And the more that we can explore our inner world, we can shift the outer world, we can create change in the whole society, right? And when we go in and we start exploring ourselves and our connection to the divine, to God, to the light, to creating and manifesting something sacred within our life and in the world, that mystic, the mysticism can help us tap into what we call maybe miracles and purity in magic, not the shadow element, because sometimes magic has, and we've always got to remember this, because there's a lot of us that are strong alchemists, right? And strong alchemists are very attracted to, can be attracted strongly to the light, but also like to dip their toe into the dark element and the darker elements of the mysticism. And not sometimes it's the easiest way that I can explain it is it's like the little magician, the little sorcerer who is training up the apprentice. It's more like the apprentice, right? And they are just being nosy and they just want to see what they can do, and they are fascinated by the light and the dark and what they can do and what is in unseen. And they start playing about universal laws and doing things that they shouldn't be doing, right? So delving into maybe something they don't understand, and not disciplined enough or mature enough to put the work in, right? Maybe not even disciplined enough that they want to learn something, but they're just willing to go to anybody and, anybody to learn just to save them money or time or energy, but they're not fully committed. And if you think about the little sorcerer who's just playing at it, they can do a lot of damage. And so the mystic can relate to the alchemist, and there's a fine line. The two combine in many ways and can work together, but there's a fine line between the two of them. But there is some aspects of where the mystic when they're not going on a sacred journey. They're not looking at it as a spiritual journey. They're not looking at it as a divine journey. That they are going on the journey for illusionary reasons. It's the ego feeding it. The ego is feeding it for other ulterior motives. Now, when we're willing to strip things away and we're willing to totally go into the sacred and to understand universal laws and spiritual laws in a more deeper way, and understand that there's certain things that because I'll give you as an example that that's something that I was always unsure about, and and a lot of people still do this, and I think I think it goes against universal laws, right? But one of the things that when I was taught Reiki, there was a lot, I went to different teachers for a variety of reasons, and different levels. I repeated some of my levels, and one of the things that was talked a lot about, that you could send distant healing and healing to people even if they didn't give you permission, and the soul would how could you say, agree if if it didn't want it, wouldn't send it. I've had experiences in my life which has been horrible. Believe me, it's been a horrible experience where I could see people, I could feel people sending me energy, but there was other things come through with it because it was the ego. And I remember waking up one night, and I've had lots of different experiences like that, but this particular one where a woman was in my energetic field. Now, this woman I didn't know very well, but a friend of mine knew her, right? And had mentioned something to do with me and to do with a challenge I was having. And this person was basically in my energetic field, and that's called energetic. And then I'm not going to say the word, but it's Archetype. Okay. And one of the things that I see, for example, in the spiritual sector, is because most training is very short and it's not very long. It's not like, so if you think about what healing modalities, they're taught over the different levels, they're taught over a couple of weekends, and yeah, okay, yeah, you go away and you put it into practice and you have so many case studies, but you're not going every week for years to a teacher, and you're not learning a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are not taught. And one of the things that you learn when you go and you do different modalities, and the more that you work with different spiritual teachers, particularly a lot of teachers that work with different things to do with energy, attach, and different levels, because there's all different levels. Believe me, I know some people, and I've recommended them to go to courses, and they've always been blown away. And then, I've went in another course and said to them, I think you should go in this because you're going to learn even more. There's always more things that we don't understand and we don't see, and we're not always taught, because it's to do with a level of consciousness and awareness, but also in awareness to the challenges that we maybe see. Sometimes we don't see certain challenges, or we've never faced a certain circumstance. So that never comes up. And we think that the tools that we have is going to solve everything until whatever. And that's why you see healers that are working full time, maybe 30, 40 years, tend to have seen other circumstances where something they've been taught that should solve it's not. They've realised that there's something else going on. So there's always more. And one of the realizations that I started to realise was there was a lot of teachings where universal laws were not being applied because these things were not. And there were certain spiritual laws. And the more that we go on the mystic journey, it's about us going inwards, and it's been partly as being part of being the spiritual explorer. The spiritual mystic is getting into, the sacred aspect within you, connecting with the sacred and the divine and God. And it's a journey of sacredness. It's a journey of devotion and discipline, right? And in your spiritual journey, the more that you can be disciplined about that journey, you get more spiritual growth, and it's very rewarding, because of course, it's not always an easy journey, right? It can unveil a lot, and it can help you have to face a lot of things that maybe were distortions, or maybe things that you got wrong or whatever, but it's also a very rewarding journey. And when you take that journey as the mystic, it helps you open doors that you never ever imagined, and it helps you see things, and it's almost like you're opening different levels, and it's almost like these doors are constantly open, and your expansion and your consciousness is opening. So the mystic journey, the sacred mystic journey, is extremely powerful, extremely rewarding, but it takes discipline and a sense of integrity and a sense of being willing to surrender, which isn't always easy. And the more that we can do that, it helps us greatly in our business, because we open and we awaken and we see things from a wider perspective, but we also take more diligence and discernment in what we do. And we start to understand the universal laws, because it's like when, for example, when I started to learn meditation 30 years ago, there was lots of things I couldn't explain. There were some things and some teachers I felt they were missing the point. And it was like, it took a friend of mine to the way that he uses and explains things to be able to the consciousness collect. But it's also, you have to be ready. It's like we're on a journey, and certain things we're ready for at certain times in life, and some things we're not. And some things will escalate at certain levels, right? And other times we'll get stuck. But that's part of the journey, because we all have different life experience. We're all carrying different akashic patterns, ancestral patterns, all sorts of things. We're all living different types of lives. We're all here for a different purpose. We all come in with our own unique blueprint, and we are here, it's like a learning school, but it's also a playground, and it's a space for us to create new, and we all are here with this unique aspect. We're all a unique part of the jigsaw of life, right? So the more that you can understand that the mystic archetype is within us all, and the sacred mystic archetype is extremely powerful when you have a spiritual business, and is really important when you are creating a more soul-aligned business, because a soul-aligned business is about getting more really connected, deeply connected with the soul and the mystical aspects within us, right? The sacredness, the divinity. Okay, so I hope that helps. And just remember that, we all have the mystic within us, no matter how intuitive or psychic, because a lot of people just think that, certain people have mystic. Everyone has that sacred mystic within them. And often actually people that don't see themselves as the mystic, even the intuitive, that type of thing, can often get a clearer channel, because they come in with no pre-expectations, right? And they're not just looking for the whistles, because sometimes it's so easy. It's, for example, times when, you're teaching healing, you can have some students that they see lots of things and experience lots of things. Now, that does not mean that they're any more powerful a healer, or that their gifts are going to be greater. That that reflects in no way, because that's just their experience at that point. And sometimes those students sometimes get disappointed when they don't experience that the next time, or they don't have the same, because they're looking for a repeated experience. So in the mystical journey is constantly a journey of, in many ways, you're moving through things, but there's sometimes a level of unexpectedness. It's like, the more that you can go in open, right, and open with dedication, and you're practicing your daily meditation, you're making the time to go inward, you're not giving all your power over to the external world, it gives you bigger reward, and it helps you evolve. Okay, so remember that even spending a short time each day going inward, and being consciously looking at your work in your spiritual journey is sacred and is divine, is it's to be taken seriously in a way, and that you're willing to do the work, and see the more that you really are willing to do the work and make the sacrifices, the rewards are absolutely enormous, and that is the key.